Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. Today's video, we're going to talk about all things Secret Rare. We're going to talk about the Set 13 Secret Rares. We're going to talk about budget alternatives to Secret Rares. We're going to talk about the state of Secret Rares at the moment in Dragon Ball Super, and just everything Secret Rare related. I've been kind of mentioning things about Secret Rares, both like alternative Secret Rares you could play, and my thoughts on Secret Rares in the game. So I figured I'd take this video to kind of just compile all my thoughts on them. So that being said, we'll get into it. But before that, if you guys are new here, please do subscribe and hit that bell so you never miss a video. And if you guys want to help support the channel, if you're in the market to buy any of the Secret Rares we talk about in today's video, use my link in the description to TCG Player. It will help the channel out a really great deal. I really do appreciate it. That being said, let's jump right in. No surprise here, the queen of Secret Rares in the current format is Supreme Kai of Time, Space Time, and Raveler. This card literally just does it all. For one, you play her, she's an 8-drop 40k, stops attacks from leaders and unisons, which in certain matchups can be incredibly deadly. She also offers a board wipe, which is incredible in like yellow decks and blue decks, and some other decks that don't necessarily have board wipes. Even in decks you have straight removal, maybe like spot removal for one card at a time, you'd really want to consider playing Supreme Kai of Time, Space Time, and Raveler. And a vast majority of decks you'll see topping events, both in webcam, IRL, and other events, will be playing this Secret Rare. This card came out and really solidified that generic SCR slot that a lot of us thought that Negative Energy Dragon Balls could fill or Black Smoke Dragon could fill, but she just does it so much better. And honestly, in my testing lately, guys, like the fact that she's a 1-drop 40k attacker has been providing so much value in my testing as of late. I've been winning so many games just off of that. I kind of wanted to mention that because I feel like it's somewhat of an underrated thing that you know, she has at her disposal, being a 1-drop 40k attacker. But with that in mind, I mean, you also have to play smart. There are definitely certain matchups where you can't afford to attack with her. She might be, you know, removed during battle or have her skills negated during battle, things like that. So you do want to kind of be smart with that. But I mean, I'm not really surprising anyone by saying this is the queen SCR of the format, right? So with that in mind, we're going to move on a bit. What's funny is Celezino was kind of in that spot that Supreme Kai of Time is in before she came out, right? Celezino was it had a lot of people crying for it to be banned, which I didn't necessarily agree with the ban, but I did think that an errata would have been appropriate, something along the lines of like giving it an energy cost for successor, maybe a green and a yellow, or maybe a green or a yellow. That way you could have maybe restricted it to green yellow decks only, and while it's definitely one of the most powerful cards in the game, restricting it to green yellow only would have killed the card's playability until green yellow became more prominent again. But if you made it a green or a yellow, or maybe a double green or a double yellow, giving it that flexibility to still being played in monocolored decks or mono yellow or mono green decks, I think that would have been okay too. Some sort of energy cost would obviously make Celezino much more fair. But what's funny is Celezino, which seemed perfect for Mecha Frieza, is seeing a lot less play now in the deck, and Supreme Kai of Time is just taking over that same deck where you would think Celezino is just a perfect fit. Yeah, it's somewhat easy for Mecha Frieza to get Celezino online, but against the top tier players or against decks with a lot of removal, like Red for instance, that can just remove your 15k battle cards super easily, Celezino is actually much harder to set up. So a lot of Mecha players are opting to play Supreme Kai of Time, Space Time, and Raveler. Now what's really nice that we've seen as of late is Heroine's Lineage stepping up to the plate as a very good budget alternative SCR. Now I will say, if you're interested in picking up this card and you just heard me say budget SCR and that immediately sends you over to TCG Player, definitely pick this up as soon as possible because it is going up in price. It started off around 60, 70, 80. Now it's almost north of 100. Last I saw on TCG Player, there was one for $100. So that would be a steal in my opinion. I really don't think this card can facilitate a super high price tag of like 150 plus. I really don't think that's realistic because this card is a 4 per case SCR. We've seen many other 4 per case SCRs keep a very low price tag because they're much easier to pull. Now with that in mind, this is definitely the best SCR we've seen out of that pull ratio, so it will demand a higher price tag than something like Goku Oob, which is like really cheap, like 35-40 bucks. This will obviously be much more expensive than that. And even Frieza Army Reborn, which I think at this time is about $70. This being at 100, I think is very realistic because the card is so good. But, you know, I was pretty convinced, to be honest, that when they revealed this card, it wouldn't be strictly better than Supreme Kai of Time. Heroine's Lineage stealing battle cards to me appears to be a very format dependent card. Like, there are actually some formats where I think Heroine's Lineage can be better than Supreme Kai of Time. I didn't quite think this format was that case, but I've been proven wrong in a sense where a lot of players are opting to play this as their SCR of choice. I did a deck profile with Peter Dance and Chris Reyes talking about their Vegex list, and in my head, you'd want to play Supreme Kai of Time because, again, that 1-drop 40k attacker thing, right? That's perfect for an aggro deck. If you get dragged out to turn 3, this big attacker should help you seal a deal, right? But one of them ended up playing Supreme Kai of Time and wished they had been playing Heroine's Lineage, which is funny because it's obviously the much less expensive SCR, but they were explaining to me in the deck profile about how much better they felt Heroine's Lineage was in Vegex compared to Supreme Kai of Time, Space Time Unraveler. So there are definitely some legitimate arguments to be made for Heroine's Lineage. You know, the fact that you have to steal battle cards, it is dependent on what your opponent's playing. You know, the value you get out of Heroine's Lineage can change depending on if your opponent's playing, you know, stronger or weaker battle cards. But in a sense, it's always going to be a battle card your opponent has to play scare of if they're going all in for game on a battle card. Because if you have one energy open, or if you have a way to untap that energy mid-battle, whatever the case is, and you activate this card, well, you know, they just went all in for nothing, right? So in that sense, Heroine's Lineage actually poses a scarier threat than Supreme Kai of Time. So in that sense, I know a lot of people really don't like shelling out the big dough for these SCRs, and I totally understand that. That's why I'm really happy that Heroine's Lineage is actually a really good budget SCR that's putting up tournament results. So I definitely just want to make you guys aware of that. Heroine's Lineage is not a joke of a card. If you're, you know, kind of in that train of thought, definitely consider picking up Heroine's Lineage if you don't have access to either of these two SCRs. But with that being said, I want to move over and talk about the set 13 SCRs, because we're getting another really great generic one. So looking at Sinchenron, and I do want to shout out London Players Guild. I kind of used their thumbnail for this because I couldn't find a good picture that where the text wasn't super blurry, where all these cards were together. So I do want to shout them out because I am using their thumbnail. But anyways, ultimate blocker on the Sinchenron. Permanent, this card's also treated as black in all areas. Its main color is yellow, if you can't tell from the picture. Another permanent, this card to be removed from a battle area, remove it from the game instead. And then auto for 1. At the end of a battle in which this card is using a combo from your hand, play this card from the drop area. If you do, choose any number of your opponent's leader cards, battle cards, and unison cards equal to or less than their current energy, ignoring barrier, and switch it to rest mode. So keep in mind the auto costs 1, but it also costs 1 to combo, so that is a 2 energy SCR that you're putting into play, a 40k blocker. Really solid card because even though this is a card that taps things, it does not have to be tied to yellow. You can use this any color. I've even seen some green decks using this card because, unlike, you know, other decks that don't have access to board wipes and a lot of spot removal, green does. So in that sense, green doesn't really need access to Supreme Kai of Time because that color can do those things already. So you might opt to play something like this Sin SCR. But a great thing is if you pull this in set 13 or you happen to get one for a great deal, you can play this in any deck you would have played Heroine's Lineage or Supreme Kai of Time. And it's gonna be really good if you use it in the right scenarios, right? Like if you use it to just almost end your opponent's turn, like a baby Hatchiac in a sense, where you're able to tap enough cards to get to the next turn, and then you can use the activate main for 4, gains double strike and dual attack for 40k. Pretty big. Anyways, moving along to Gohanks, we have a 4-drop red Unison. Last Unison SCR wasn't so hot, but this one's a lot better. So ultimate dual attack blocker auto. When this card's played, choose all your opponent's battle cards ignoring barrier. They get minus 25,000 power for the turn. Auto +1. When your opponent attacks with a battle card, you may choose it and it gets minus 25,000 power for the turn. And then activate main -4. Give this card 15,000 power and triple strike for the turn. And at the end of the turn, switch this card to active mode. This Unison SCR is way better than Vegito for sure. It's a late game SCR, which is great because you're still probably going to play your early game SCRs in whatever red decks you're playing. But this is great because of the board wipe, because it does stop 1 attack per turn essentially. But this one in red decks, personally, I probably wouldn't play this over something like Supreme Kai of Time SCR because that board wipe, you know, it can happen kind of spontaneously when you need it to. And I guess with this Unison, it can do that as well, but Kai does that for 2 energy as opposed to Gohanks doing that for 4. And I'm not saying Gohanks is a bad card. I think it's actually really good. Obviously, ignoring barrier for its board wipe is a really solid effect. So maybe this will be good in some red decks like King Piccolo, King Vegeta, things of that nature. But I guess time will tell on that one. And then Robaloo seems to be the most specific of the bunch and maybe the most lackluster. Ultimate double strike, Dark Overwhelm 8 for 2. Not having deflect is pretty gruff. Permanent, this card removed from battle area, remove it from the game instead. Auto, if you have 4 or more energy when this card's played using Dark Overwhelm. Play up 2 battle cards with different card names, energy cost of 6 or less, and the overwhelm skill from your warp. Auto choose a card in your battle area with the overwhelm skill and place it in the owner's drop. When one of your opponent's cards attacks, negate the attack. So to be honest, the black decks that would play this, I really think they're going to play Heroine's Lineage or Supreme Kai of Time, or even maybe the Sin SCR. I really think that's going to be more likely than playing this. I think it's cool that you get multiple battle cards out when you play her, but if blue is popular in the meta, or even yellow, maybe with like Cold Bloodlust or other things that can negate battle card skills, she's not going to be all that great. But I did want to talk about these SCRs just to give you guys my thoughts on them, and that's pretty much wrapping up the set 13 overview, right? But anyways, moving along, I did want to talk about Primal Carnage and Baby Hatchiac, respectives to green and blue, because these can only be played in those colors. Now, when you're looking at Heroine's Lineage, if you're looking at that in the sense of stealing a battle card, I would more strongly consider playing Gradient Mass Hand Primal Carnage. And again, a deck you're going to play Primal Carnage in, you're heavily going to consider most likely playing Celezino, unless the math doesn't work out to where you can drop Celezino easily. But I think Primal Carnage is a step up from Heroine's Lineage because it can KO literally anything in the game. It ignores barrier. Heroine's Lineage does have an energy cost restriction and does not ignore barrier. So I did just kind of want to point out that Primal Carnage is probably the better option. But if you're, again, on a budget and Heroine's Lineage is what you have access to, you could buy Heroine's Lineage and it's going to be playable in any deck you decide to play, no matter what color it is. It might not be the most optimal, but it's still going to be very, very good. Same thing with Baby Hatchiac. I was actually just talking to a patron of mine that has access to both this and Supreme Kai of Time SCR, and was, discussing with me about potentially playing Space Time over Baby Hatchiac. And a lot of players would think about that and say that makes absolutely no sense. Why would you do that? I totally actually get it, because again, blue doesn't have that access to removal, doesn't have that access to board wipes like a lot of other colors have. So even though Baby Hatchiac is a straight up turn ender, which is actually a liability against yellow, you got to keep in mind it's a liability against yellow, and it's a liability against green decks that are playing the Janemba, Boo, counter, or any deck that has access to a counter, for instance. Even the blue mirror match, Baby Hatch can be a liability. I'm not saying that makes the card bad. Baby Hatch is absolutely broken. But yeah, Space Time Unraveler, giving you access to a board wipe, you're just kind of looking for something in your SCR that your color doesn't have access to. So I totally understand that argument if you were to consider that. And then finally, guys, I want to talk about Frieza Army Reborn, because honest to God, I think this is a really good budget SCR in King Piccolo and maybe even in the upcoming King Vegeta deck in set 13, if the format allows for it, right? And here's what I mean, right? So back in January, when I went to PPG and there was a team tournament, I recommended my teammate that was playing King Piccolo, I recommended he played Frieza Army Reborn because another player on the team needed to play Space Time Unraveler. The reason I did that was King Piccolo was absolutely everywhere. It was mostly black, red, and yellow. Those three colors have a pretty hard time dealing with Frieza Army Reborn. Yes, yellow can rest it, but still, getting that board wipe and getting that hand knowledge, and if you already have an established board, which against yellow is not the hardest thing to do, that can make going for game very, very good. Same thing against the King Piccolo mirror match, removing the drums and getting that hand knowledge, maybe taking out the Violent Race in their hand and going for game, that can be really solid. So if blue becomes more popular, Frieza Army Reborn, probably not the best, but if blue is at a pretty low, popularity level, it's even good against green because Frieza Charismatic Villain doesn't stop it. You can rip the Dormant out of their hand, things like that. So I am legitimately recommending this as a budget SCR for you guys. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Goku Oob is a good blue SCR. It's unfortunately really not. That's why that card's really, really cheap. But Frieza Army Reborn is sitting at about $70. I think it is playable in these decks if you can't get your hands on Heroine's Lineage or Supreme Kai of Time. So those are kind of just my thoughts on the SCRs at the moment, guys. I did want to just talk to you about them. I hope you guys got some helpful information out of this video. I really do hope to see you guys play cards like Heroine's Lineage and Frieza Army Reborn because they will help your wallet. But overall, I mean, I don't think you need SCRs in general. If they're just totally out of your price point, I think you can still do well at a tournament without them. But I mean, the way SCRs are designed, they're just meant to be Saki 1-0s, which is a thing about the game that exists, right? So I hope I helped you guys with some budget alternatives. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.